It's day 613 of the Russian invasion, and very soon the overall number of the Russian losses will cross the mark of 300,000 dead terrorists. I predict that it will happen around Halloween, which to me personally means an opportunity to have another ice cream in Bucha. As you probably know, every time the Russian terrorists lose 50,000 zombies dead, I go to Bucha, to this place where the Russian murderers massacred almost 1,500 Ukrainian civilians, including children. And there I have an ice cream, because the kids murdered by Russians will never be able to have an ice cream or play with friends, hug their parents, grow up, or enjoy life. Since the beginning of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, more than 98,000 cases of the Russian war crimes were collected by the Ukrainian Ministry of Interior. According to the minister Ihor Klimenko, the Ukrainian National Police created a database on the Russian war criminals, containing the data on approximately 240,000 Russians that were involved in committing crimes against the Ukrainian civilians. You probably know the face of the most notorious Russian criminal, already wanted by the International Crime Court. As for the rest of the Russian war criminals, they won't find a peaceful life in any country of the world, except maybe North Korea. However, I haven't seen much Russians willing to live there. The Institute for Studying Warfare reports that the Ukrainian defenders who landed on the left bank of Dnipro near Kherson continue their advance, liberating more territory from the terrorist scum and improving their tactical positions. The Russian terrorists are increasing the number of the long-range missiles produced in new secret factories on the territory of Russia. Of course, because they are secret, we will never be able to find them, for example, like this one in the Russian city of Chelyabinsk. We have absolutely no idea that the number of personnel at the Chelyabinsk metallurgical plant increased from 10 to 17,000 orcs. Instead of building schools, the Terrorist Federation builds new facilities for producing death. But of course, it's a top-secret information. The Russian Telegram channels report that Kadyrovites murdered a family in the occupied Karlivka, Donetsk Oblast. According to witnesses, a local man had a quarrel with a Kadyrovite terrorist from Chechnya. The terrorist then came to his home when the whole family gathered for dinner and shot everyone, including 2 children. At the same time, a different Russian Telegram channel reports that no Kadyrovites were seen for quite a long time on the southern front. The checkpoints, according to the Russian invader, are being controlled by Russians and Dagestani, and the TikTok Spetsnaz is nowhere to be seen except for the social media. Basically, now you know the answer. The Kadyrovites can be found in Karlivka, where they terrorize the local Ukrainian population. And speaking of Dagestan, the citizens of this beautiful Russian province nearly demolished a hotel after receiving a message about Israeli refugees who allegedly accommodated there. Personally, I doubt that Israeli refugees would choose Russia as a safe spot to have an asylum, considering that the Terrorist Federation is completely anti-Semitic, and, for example, seeing such messages in the Russian social media is a common case in Russia. Just don't forget that the Russians calling to discriminate Jews, basically copy-pasting Hitler, are the ones who claim that everybody else are Nazis, speaking of Ukraine, Europe, NATO, Israel, and, of course, Cardiff, the UK. The Prime Minister of Slovakia, Mr. Fico, known for sympathizing the Russian invaders, concluded that Ukraine is the most corrupted country in Europe and the European Union has no need to expand its support to Ukraine. Here in Ukraine, we also checked the available information and concluded that our closest neighbors had a similar rating of corruption before joining the European Union, and Slovakia had about the same index as Ukraine nowadays. I'm sure you remember those horrible times, and after becoming members of the European Union, our neighbors made incredible progress in fighting corruption, because this is direct result of the international relations between the European countries. Currently, Ukraine is just like your own country back then, except that your people are not being massacred by the Russian supremacists. You know, if Mr. Fico really cared about the international relations, I would really love to see him visiting Bucha. And I would also like to remind him that the most corrupted country of Europe is Russia, according to study of Transparency.org, sitting almost 20 positions lower than Ukraine in the International Transparency Rating. With that, I'd like to say thank you, my dear viewers, for supporting Ukraine, because this is the right cause, and your support is not only saving lives of Ukrainian people, but it's also very, very important psychologically, and here in Ukraine we will never forget about it. My name is Operator Starsky, reporting from Kiev, Ukraine. As always, be safe.